Hey, everybody, welcome to the Game Informer Show, a weekly podcast covering the video game industry. Join us every Thursday, or in this case, Saturday, for a discussion about the latest gaming news, reviews, and exclusive reveals alongside Game Informer staff and special guests from around the industry. I am your host, Marcus Stewart, and I am the only permanent host because everyone disappeared on me this week for some reason. Everyone just is busy doing all kinds of important assignments and covering special things that we can't talk about. But I have assembled the two greatest co-hosts, guest hosts, perhaps, that you could ever imagine. First and foremost, Game Informer's own editor-in-chief, Matt Miller. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm glad that I can come and join the party here this week.
Yes, we threw the party for you. I don't know if you saw the sign outside the door, but it had your name on it. Yeah.
It's amazing. The streamers were going off and confetti was flying. It was amazing. Thank you for that.
And we spare no expense here on the Game Informer Show. And a very special guest returning to the Game Informer Show, former GI editor Jason Guisao. How are you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm good. I'm so excited to be here. I missed you guys, so it's great to just be here talking with y'all.
Yeah, for those that know, Jay was with us as Game Informer editor. What was it, last year that you left?
Yes, it was last year. Yeah.
Yeah, and you went on to Bungie for a while, and now have moved on from that. And making your way to your next destination, and wanted to sit down and chop it up with you on the GI show. A particularly big show this week. We got a lot to get through. You know, the reason we're doing this so late is that we wanted to wait till after the Game Awards so that we could talk about the show itself, the awards, the reveals, all that good stuff. We're also going to get into Grand Theft Auto 6. The first trailer dropped earlier this week, which for some reason already feels like it was a month ago, because I mean, yeah, I had to remember, that was just a few days ago that we got Grand Theft Auto 6. It's weird. And then, of course, what we're going to be starting the show off with is Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, our most recent cover story that I wrote. But Matt, you reviewed the game, so you have taken a full trip through Pandora. You have fought the RDA. You have... presumably you now know what it means to be Na'vi?
I do. I actually, you can't see it, but I've got one of those head tail things now behind me, and I can connect with animals and plants. It's pretty cool.
It's connected to your chair right now, so you're communing with AWA as we speak.
That's what I'm doing.
Nice. So tell us all about it, man. Your review is live up on the site. Tell us what you think of it.
Yeah, I quite like this game. It was... not to bury the lead, I gave it a 7.75 because there were some things that I didn't like. But I'm really hoping that doesn't discourage some folks from playing it, especially if you are an Avatar fan, because the game is very cool. It's really big, and it has a lot of things about it to recommend it. It just has some things that, unfortunately for me, pulled it down, which we can get into here in a little bit. But big picture, it is a really solid and faithful take on that fiction, right? Like, if you like those movies, you like the kind of the science fiction, that kind of optimistic, based in ecological kind of conversation stuff that is part of those films, I think that you'll find a lot of things to like. It starts pretty quickly. It becomes apparent that it's like an open world game in the vein of something like Far Cry, right? But where sometimes that Far Cry formula has started to feel stale, at least to me, here it's made a lot more compelling because of the environment that you're moving through, right? They do, I think, maybe a better job than any game I've ever encountered of creating an alien landscape with meaningful ecosystems, plants, animals, locations that all sort of feel like it's a real place, even though, of course, it's totally fantastical. And there are dozens and dozens of different things to gather and hunt and then, with the stuff that you do, you're then cooking and crafting and making all that kind of stuff. And it can be really neat. It can be a little overwhelming too, which is maybe one of the things that I dinged it for, is that there are times that there's so much stuff to do in that vein that I start to feel a little bit overwhelmed, right? Like, okay, I need this kind of bark, but I can only gather it when it's raining and it's nighttime and it's only in this one spot. And if I can't find it in that one spot, then I got to come back late. And at some point, would sometimes just throw up my hands and be like, I don't care that much about crafting that new bow.
Mm.
So I'm just going to go do something else. So, like, that can be frustrating, but there's no denying the depth of those systems that are there. And if you choose to have the patience to kind of learn them and get into it, it's really cool.
For the crafting stuff, 'cause I remember on the cover story trip, I believe it was Drew Reckner that talked about how the crafting was somewhat optional and that you could maybe choose not to engage with it as much as it seemed like. How like is that accurate? Like, is there enough
Yeah,
maybe like pre-made weapons or armors that you can either buy or just find out in the world if you don't want to stumble around in the dark trying to find the right bark?
I I suppose you could. I need to caveat that though. One of the other things that can be a frustration in the game is that I think when most people approach these sorts of games, you have your own style of how you like to play them. Some people like to really like beeline through the main story and like I don't want to spend that much time on this game, but I do want to experience it. I want to get to the ending and have that. And then there's the other group of people, the other end of the spectrum is like, I'm going to do every side quest. I'm going to do all the crafting. I'm going to get the best equipment, all that kind of stuff. And of course, you can fall. Most people fall somewhere in between that. This game, I think, demands a certain level of engagement with some combination of either the crafting or if you're not doing the crafting, you kind of got to do a lot of side missions in order
Mm.
to just keep pace with being able to finish the main story. Um, there were times as I was playing it through and I was experimenting with that I would let my sort of side missions and my crafting lapse to see what would happen if I like let me just try to beeline it, right? And see what happens. And pretty quickly the main missions were like I'm not level to where I'm supposed to be. Um because I didn't have enough gear, I didn't have the stuff that I didn't uh my character just wasn't strong enough to not be getting really beat up when I was going into fights. And so I went back and I did more side missions, I did more crafting, and I pulled myself up. But then, that kind of takes away a little bit of that sense of choice of like, I want to approach the game the way that I want to. So I would kind of say that though I can sense that there was that goal that the developer was talking with you about, I don't know if it ended up being that way. I think
Hmm.
you do have to engage with crafting some, and by extension, you got to engage with gathering or hunting, and then you're kind of like, you know, depends on if you like that stuff or not. For some people, that's going to be like a win, right? Like, oh, well, of course I would do that. That's what this game's about. Um, and and it won't be an issue. But I do think you kind of have to do some of that stuff, and if you don't do it, you're gonna have to do a lot of the side missions that these Navi are telling you, like, hey, go and help my friend, or go find this thing in the forest, or whatever.
Right. Jay, are you a big Avatar fan at all? And have you had a chance to play this or have any interest in it?
I haven't played it. I'm a little intrigued by it. I watched the first movie. I haven't watched the second one because I don't remember. The second one's longer than the first one, right? The second one's like 8 hours. It's three, right? It's like 3 hours, I think.
It's a long movie.
It is
That's what
longer, yeah.
that's what I hear. Gosh, I vaguely remember stuff from the first movie, but I think overall I had fun watching it. So I when I saw that this was coming out and I remember hearing about it and like watching some early trailers for it, but it kind of snuck up on me. I didn't even realize it was coming out like so soon, and then it came out. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's out. So I am a little intrigued by it. Just sort of seeing this like massive, I guess still sort of like in its like infancy stages like IP, since they still have plans to make a lot of other movies with it. But it's kind of interesting to see it sort of bridge the gap between like film and game, and see it get sort of the like a lot of love, in that it's an open world game with like a lot of systems, a lot of deep systems. I feel like you don't really see that very often, right? With like movie to game adaptations and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, it as a licensed game. This is not. It's not like a cash grab, by
Mhm.
any stretch. This is a
Right.
real full open world game, with a lot of cool systems and a lot of stuff to do. It's a big, lengthy game, almost any way that you could approach it. Um, One of the things I found myself thinking about is that, like, for someone like you, Jay, it's actually a very approachable game. It's not
Cool.
something
Okay.
that, like, you would have to know a lot about the movies. The
Mm.
most you would need to know about the movies is the stuff that you almost probably have just by cultural osmosis about it,
Yeah.
right? Like, alien planet, blue people,
Yeah.
bad humans, hurt environment.
Right.
Yeah,
Even
That's it.
right.
it's funny
I
because
mean,
even
like,
the beginning has the 'cause I've played the first like 2 hours or so, and
yeah,
it gives very little setup for the movies. It just has like a wall, like a text message that says like 8 years before the Battle of the Hallelujah Mountains, and it's like I guess I'm supposed to know what that is.
yeah, yeah. There's a distant nod to it, but this is meant to be like a different part of that same fictional world, and
Okay.
and certainly it builds on some of the ideas that are in the movies. But you're part of what's fun, I think, for Avatar fans is that you'd be getting to know these different clans of Navi and these different environments and biomes that you could visit that aren't shown in the films. And that has the advantage that if you're someone like you who's like, the movies didn't ever really totally do it for me, but this looks kind of cool. Like, I just like the idea of like running around in a first person open world through a big alien landscape. You could pick it up and you'd be totally fine. Now that said, I think one of the things there is that even if you don't love the Avatar movies or haven't really engaged with them, I think to enjoy this game you have to like some of the same things that those movies are tapping into, right? Like, if you're not into like sort of that kind of optimistic sci-fi nature stuff, and it's definitely some nods to, without delving into specific cultures, it's definitely like trying to talk about indigenous cultures and things like that on Earth, but without, that's not actual Earth cultures. If none of that stuff is a interesting topics for you for a game, then it's not gonna. There's maybe nothing there for you.
Yeah,
I see.
the Avatar series has always felt like the most expensive and beautiful Milky Way bar I've ever seen. And what I mean by that is that Milky Way bars are on the B tier of candy for me, where I've never gone out of my way to pay for them. And I've never seen either Avatar movie in theaters. I've only watched them like, at home or whatever,
Sure.
which means I guess I'm doing it wrong. 'Cause I'm not seeing it in full IMAX splendor, but I don't care enough to pay to see it. But when I do watch them, I enjoy myself. Like, it's like if you give me a Milky Way, I'll eat it and enjoy it, but
Yes.
I don't think about it after it's gone, and I'm not gonna go out of my way to get it. And a lot of that is just because of the storytelling, where it's like it's not bad per se, but it's also very kind of boilerplate in terms of like you mentioned, Matt, of like, hey, pollution's bad, and like the RDA, the enemies are some of the most like almost like cartoonishly evil.
Yes.
Of like you're like, how is, I get that corporations are like bad, but they're almost like Captain Planet villains bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
They are.
it's like they have no redeeming qualities whatsoever. And I'm wondering, like, does this game have a stronger narrative, would you say, than the films, or is it on
I
par?
wanted to ask that too. Yeah.
I think there's some fun narrative elements, and one particularly, like, there's a fervent effort to talk about a real world like cultural issue, which is like child separation and re-education, which is a pretty kind of awful thing that's happened in a lot of moments in history, and they deal with that in some, I would say, kind of sophisticated and interesting ways. But overall, the flow of story is fairly like expected. There's not going to be a lot of surprises here for you or anything like that. Um, I I think, I mean, your Milky Way analogy is an appropriate one. You're not going to be unhappy about it, eating up this story, but it's not necessarily going to be the most memorable thing ever. Um, I do think, one of the interesting things about this game, and this is, true, I guess, for a lot of games that came out this year, is that we've had this string of such incredibly high bar games in recent months that a game like Avatar is easy in comparison to feel like, oh well, it's it's not like industry changing or anything like that, but it's a good game, you know. And it's also, I think, probably the last kind of big game of 2023, in the sense of like a big AAA release from a major studio. And I think for some players, you may have kind of devoured all of the other stuff, to extend your analogy, Marcus, all the other candy bars that have been on the table, rapidly in these last months, because there's been a lot of great stuff that's been really easy to gobble up. And this is a thing here at the tail end of the year, as we go into the actual like holiday season, where maybe some people are going to have some time at home where they can chill out and they don't have school or work or anything like that. You could like pick this game up, and like I genuinely feel like you could have a really good time with it. It's just straightforward, and it's really pretty, right? In the
Yeah,
same
I think
vein
it's.
as
I think that's maybe one of the highlights is that
yeah,
it's never gonna look as good as the films, but even the best looking video game doesn't come close to those films. But
yeah,
like in terms of like just a visual showpiece, I've been continually impressed with it. Like it's
Hmm.
a good looking game.
yeah, and it does have moments of like genuine like thrill, right? Like I think one of the moments in the first movie that a lot of people do remember, and that was so memorable that they made it into a Disney attraction, is the thing where you're getting on those dragon like things, the Ekrons, and going off of cliffs and flying through the landscape. And they nail that in this game, right? Like not only do you have the experience of like I gotta climb the mountain to get up to them and befriend the creature and everything, but then that moment of like you're jumping off and um, you've got this creature that you bonded with, and then he's like, he or she is like your buddy, right, from that point forward, and it's really neat. It's fun, especially after you have all this time down in the jungles and the mountains and the caves where you're kind of stuck to the ground and the foliage is everywhere. All of a sudden, the whole game world opens up, and you can fly everywhere, and it's really gratifying. And there's also this great moment, of course, that you can do almost on repeat. I started doing it just as a matter of course, rather than just mounting my Ekron. I always was like, I gotta find a high cliff to jump off of, and then
Oh, that's
fall in
cool.
midair, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like it's 200% cooler to be tumbling through the air and have him like sweep down underneath of you and pick you up. So
For
it's
sure.
like I was doing that a lot. I had like 3 times that really made me laugh out loud that she didn't catch me in time, and I just died.
And then she's up there wiping her sweat, like, oh
Yeah,
boy,
oh
whoops.
well. Guess I need to go bond
Shrug.
with someone else.
Yeah, shrugging her wings, I guess. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Yeah, like I said, I'm still in like the intro hours, I guess. Like I think I just broke out past sort of the I guess basically the tutorial area more or less. I'm enjoying it so far. I think it helps that I haven't, because this game's been getting a lot of like heavy Far Cry comparisons, and like
sure.
valid, but I've not played, like the only Far Cry I've ever beaten was 3, and then after that I only played a little bit of 6. So I'm not as burned out on that formula as other people are. So it's like, to me, the sort of like first person crafting survival combat stuff in an open world is still like novel to a degree.
Mhm.
And then, like I said, with the visuals and just some of the more like Avatar specific stuff, like the like foraging for plants and all the weird conditions, or just like how they deal with the wildlife of like, oh, I could kill this thing with a bow, but it'll save it, but if I use a gun, it's gonna ruin it, but it's faster. And like some of that decision making is like
Mhm.
interesting. So like it's like it's kind of like watching the first like half hour of those movies where you're like, okay, I'm on board for this. All right,
Yeah.
this is all right, and then like seeing if it goes from there. And again, I like the films. They just don't like they're just like fine, pretty much. You know, like it's fun. I think I'll stick with it for a bit. It's just gonna be hard because I have so many other games on my plate that I'm trying to finish up before the end of the year too. So it's gonna be competing with those. But I this is definitely like, I mean, it's weird to say this is the best Avatar games. It's not like was this like the second one because they did that 2009 tie-in and that was like okay. Yeah.
This is a good Avatar game. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Alrighty. So like I said, Matt's review is up on the site, so be sure to check that out. And yeah, Matt, I know you got to get out of here and go run a magazine and a website and all that good stuff. But thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course. I am happy to. So it's rare that I have the opportunity to swing in and do this. So I really appreciate the chance to talk about the game. Hope you guys both have a great rest of your chat. I mean, you talked earlier, Marcus, about like Grand Theft Auto feeling like it was a month ago. This has been a crazy week.
Yeah.
Video games. A lot of big announcements and compliments to the Game Awards folks. It was a great show, I thought, last night. Maybe one of the best ones that they've done. A lot of good announcements, and so fun stuff to talk about here.
Yeah, lots to look forward to in next year or 2025, which is a number that has been appearing a lot lately.
Like, now that we're through the holidays, it always cracks me up. Like nobody wants to talk about anything in like September, October, November, which is, let me tell you, for doing the kind of work that we do, can be kind of a challenge when you're trying to pull together preview coverage and stuff. And then all of a sudden, they get through those games. And it's like, oh, now we start talking, and we get those dates of 2024, 2025, whatever. But exciting times. A lot of cool stuff that's been revealed and made me excited about gaming here in the next year.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. And stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we are going to get all up in that Grand Theft Auto 6, talking about that trailer and sort of giving our theories about what that game entails. We'll be right back. Hello! And there was only two. It's our show now. The dynamic duo.
Taking over.
Exactly. We're moving on to our next topic, which is a big one, Jay, because after years and years and years and waiting, and also one extremely big leak.
Right, yeah.
And then one other big leak right before it came.
Exactly. Yep.
We got a trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6. Finally, it happened.
Exciting.
It finally happened. If you don't know the story, the Rockstar had announced that it was going to premiere the trailer on Tuesday, December 5th at like 9 a.m. They had it all set up. It was going to be a big thing. And then what was it, like the Monday night, like around like 6 p.m. Eastern-ish, I started getting...
Precisely.
And it was funny because I had stepped out, like I was done with work, logged off, had stepped out to go run an errand. And then all of a sudden I get Slack notifications saying, the Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer just leaked? And then figuring out what was going on. And then shortly after that, someone being like, Rockstar they just dropped the trailer. They just threw their hands up and said, all right, fine, here you go. And then trying to figure out who was around to write that, right then and there, which it was not me. Shout out to Wesley for coming off the clock to do that for us. But yeah, bummer for the team, especially the PR and boots on the ground marketing for, I know that's a big deal to have that all lined up and to celebrate. Do we know how that happened yet? Has that gotten out? Like, has anyone claimed responsibility as like, I'm the GTA 6 trailer leaker? Haha.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've seen rumors on Twitter, but I mean, it's or X, and I guess I don't know, but it's X, right? I mean, there's rumors everywhere. I'm not sure. Exactly how it went down.
I mean, and even if that person did step up, do you think they're alive now still?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they got him.
Like the Rockstar send a a professional, we'll call them, to
Right, exactly.
to take care of the to tighten up the leak. A plumber of sorts.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
yeah. Again, sucks for them, but what can you do? I guess at the end of the day, but at least if nothing else, the trailer is now what the most watched video game
Exactly.
trailer
Yeah,
thing ever in the
yeah,
history of history. It's
exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I mean, it's still like it sucks that it was leaked, but like they still found like achieved so much success from the trailer, like just releasing it early. Yeah, it broke all those records and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So, for those that don't know, it's pretty much what had been rumored for the most part. Like, it's going back to Vice City, which is the third time that they've done Vice City, but the first time they've done it since, what was it? Vice City Stories for PSP, way back in the 2000s, but set in the modern day as opposed to the 80s. So, this is the first time Rockstar has done a contemporary parody, basically, of Miami and South Florida in general. It seems to star two protagonists, which again had been rumored in the leaks that it was going to be sort of a Bonnie and Clyde style tale. Though
Right.
the trailer primarily focused on the female protagonist, Lucia.
Yeah, I think it's Lucia.
Yeah,
Yeah. Now that you said Lucia, now I'm not sure. I'm like, oh,
I've had to stop myself from calling her Lucina, like Fire Emblem.
nice.
Yeah, it's not that, and we don't know the male protagonist. Like he was briefly in a trailer. I think he had like one line, but I believe the rumors said that, or the leaks said that his name was Jason, which
Oh, there we go.
there you go. Which I mean, it could be a placeholder name. Don't get too excited, but
For now.
yeah. But let's just say
Right.
we'll say he's Jason in brackets for now. And yeah, it seems like from the trailer she is a prisoner, or was a prisoner getting out of jail. We see her and Jason going on like robberies and stuff.
Right.
But the bulk of the trailer just sort of focused on, hey, you know how weird Florida is? It sure is weird.
Exactly.
I want to know, Jay, what was your initial reaction when you watched the trailer?
Oh man, it's really funny. I feel like my relationship with the GTA series is nowhere near as strong as my relationship with the Red Dead Redemption series.
Hmm.
I've always appreciated GTA, but I don't think I can sit here and say that like I'm like a super fan or I have a lot of experience with the series. I played a bit of GTA 5. I watched a lot of videos on GTA 4 back in the day. I was definitely one of the kids growing up where it's like I could have any game I wanted, but mom would not let me have GTA, like because it was the one game on the news all the time that everyone blew out of proportion.
Did you
kind of
try to
deal.
lie about it? Like, no, all of that is not true. Don't listen to the
So I
TV.
tried, dude. I got lucky because she didn't know what Saints Row was, so I was able to play Saints Row. But just because it didn't have the same
it had Saints in the
infamous
title. It's like, how
reputation.
bad can this be? Is this a
Exactly, right?
Christian game?
But I was incredibly excited to see the trailer, to watch it. I was really interested in sort of the social media montage that they had in there,
Yeah.
like especially because GTA is sort of this like an American satire sort of series, and so it felt very fitting that if we're gonna do some modern day stuff, of course throw some social media in there. So it was kind of cool to see them play around with that a little bit. And maybe you have some thoughts on that too that we'll talk about. But I don't know. I really liked the trailer. As Ben Hansen said in his min max reaction, Rockstar is just so good at making trailers. They're so good at teasers. I thought this was a pretty strong trailer, a pretty cool showing for the world and even just like how populated it is and the NPCs and the art direction and stuff like that. I think we got a lot to talk about and a lot to look at, even though it is what 90 seconds total or something like that.
Yeah,
Maybe
something
even
like
short.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they packed in a lot. First and foremost, a great song choice with Tom Petty.
Yeah.
I'm not even like a huge
Yeah.
Tom Petty guy, but like
Right.
it was a great tone setter, and I think that's something Rockstar has always been very great about, like their soundtrack curation, and especially for
agree.
like those big trailers. So it immediately got me into like I guess the mood or excited for it. But yeah, like you mentioned, the trailer was just a montage of just absurdity, which you got like the lady with the dual hammers, you got the weird
Right.
like redneck crotch grabbing guy in the street,
Right.
you got women twerking on top of music moving vehicles and all that
Yep.
stuff,
Yep.
which for those that don't know, I know like IGN and other places have been running this feature of like a lot of those clips, like honestly, a shocking number of those moments in the trailer are almost like exact like
Right.
replicas of real life like social media videos from Florida, like the lady with the hammers, the gator going into the convenience store, the twerking lady on the car. Like those are all real things that have happened in Florida, and it's almost kind of it's surprising how much like how it is like an exact copy. Like it wasn't just like, oh, it's loosely based. Like no, they literally just took it and
For
then
sure.
just changed like the lady's hair color or something.
Right.
And it kind of brings me to my biggest maybe potential issue with the game is that GTA has always been about satire and just like lampooning America, but like it's been 10 years since GTA 5, which I wasn't the biggest GTA 5 fan, at least in terms of the
Okay.
narrative and some
Okay.
of the writing. Like as a sandbox, it was like super cool and impressive and just like everything running under the hood. Like I remember being amazed at the time that it was coming out on PS3 and 360 when the new generation was like right. I mean, it was
Right.
that same year that the
Right.
PS4 and Xbox One came out. And I was like, how is this not just coming out to that? How did they? What wizardry did they work? But coming off especially like Red Dead Redemption 1 and GTA 4 story, which I think is a very good story that almost feels like it doesn't get its flowers sometimes. It was just kind of like the satire felt cynical in a way that made it less fun and a little too like either like forced
Interesting.
or just not. It just felt weaker, and I kind of chalked that to like maybe I'm outgrowing GTA style of humor because I was in college or like late, like about to finish college at the time. I was already in my 20s, like well into my 20s by the time GTA 5 came out. I'm 36 now, so I was 20 or 26 or 25 when it came out.
Okay.
So I was just like, oh, maybe this is just like, maybe it's me almost. Maybe it's just not as funny to me anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But like looking at this, it like the biggest challenge for a new GTA, especially just in the last 10 years of American culture and politics and how absurd things have gotten just in real life. Like the running joke is like I feel like we've been living in like
Yep.
GTA's version of America with just so many, without getting specific, but just so many things have happened. You're just like, I can't believe this is real. And it's
Right.
like, how do you parody that? Like how do you make that more ridiculous? How do you make real life more ridiculous than it already is in a way that like that works basically? And so this trailer almost sort of like confirmed that fear of like, especially with Florida and how like ridiculous Florida can be. And I say this as someone like I live in Florida.
Right.
I've lived here my whole life. Like I grew up in South Florida in West Palm Beach. I lived in Fort Lauderdale. I've been to Miami many times, So I more than most know exactly what they're going for and have seen. I've been steeped in Floridian culture. So it's like the best that they have to show, at least in that trailer, was just them copying things that have happened and not a lot of original sort of silliness. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it almost sort of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they realized like how do you can't out ridiculous Florida. So it's like, so
True.
it's like so how are you is that a good sign for the like the satire and like the humor in the game if the best that they got is just taking something that's real and just barely changing it,
Yeah. You bring up a really good point that I didn't even consider. Although the point about us sort of maybe potentially already living in a GTA sandbox in real life, like I think that's a good point. I definitely agree, and that was definitely a vibe I sort of got, especially as I started to see coverage coming out about like okay, a lot of the social media really, a lot of that stuff in the trailer really did happen. No, but yeah, you bring up a really good point. It's just about you know sort of sort of just having these copying these like real life events and that the comedy there sort of being lost on an older or maturing audience. And I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't gravitate towards GTA and I gravitated more towards Red Dead Redemption. I think I sort of really seek that drama, sort of grim and severe, like strict kind of narrative. And I always felt like Red Dead kind of gave that to me. And GTA was always more, at least in my mind, about like the the crazy nature of American life and the comedy and absurdity that comes with it. And I don't know, it sort of bounced off of me. Um, but I don't know. I think there were obviously the social media montage took up a ton of that trailer. But I do think there were some of those more serious, grounded moments, little few and far between. But I thought they did come across with Lucia and the small snippets of her relationship
Yeah.
with Jason. And so, I hopefully there's a nice balance to that. But I do wonder, I guess, how it's been 10 years since GTA 5, right? If
Yeah.
I'm remembering
And
correctly.
it'll
Yeah,
be
yeah. So
12 by the time this game comes out.
true enough. There you go. So I do wonder how that comedy and how the spoof stuff will come across. But yeah, I think that's a really really interesting point you brought up that I didn't even really consider at all.
Yeah, I guess maybe because like GTA has always been like what made GTA funny when like GTA 3 and Vice City came out, but
Mm.
maybe GTA 3 more so because that was like contemporary America, was that it was like, oh, this would never happen. Like some of the gags, whether it be like the weird radio
Sure. Yeah.
station stuff or just some of the things you would see, it was almost like it was funny because it seemed less likely to be real, but now it's like
Right.
it becomes less funny where you're like, no, this did actually happen. So is it more sad that it's like that GTA can't even make it more silly? Like,
Potentially. Right.
it's like, is it more
Yeah.
just upsetting now that you're like, how did we allow ourselves to become
To get
this?
to this point. Yeah.
And I will say, like, I agree with you that it seemed like when they focused on like the core story of Lucia and Jason question mark, that it seemed like it was more serious, which is nice. I just want it's like after Red Dead Redemption 2, which I think is their best written game by like a
I agree.
nautical mile.
Yes, I
oh,
agree with you. Absolutely.
like I love that game and I love the first Red Dead 2, but Red Dead 2, I still think about the story and like the characters and the moments in that game like all the time. Like that game made me like it brought me to tears how incredible the writing in that game is. And it's like they can't do that and then like you can't show me that you're capable of that level of writing and then
Yeah.
like not do it again basically. It's
Right.
like
Right.
now the secret's out, like you can do something absolutely incredible, so now I expect that from you even if it's GTA. And because even Red Dead like has its sillier stuff around the edges,
Sure.
like
For
it
sure.
still has some of that like GT or like Rockstar like goofiness and like cynicism just in a different era, but like it's still a very grounded and like it's like a drama.
Yeah.
So
For
I'm
sure.
hoping they've taken that lesson and will apply it to GTA 6. There's also the question now because like since Red Dead came out, like Dan Houser's gone, Leslie Benzies is gone, like a lot of that like core Rockstar sort of like trust like brain trust has moved on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like like who was responsible for that? Like obviously Dan Houser was
Right.
like one of the primary writers. It's like did he take the like dramatic writing of Red Dead 2 with him? Was is it even fair to credit him as like the primary mind behind it? I really don't know off the top of my head how much he contributed to that game
Yeah.
specifically, but I know he's like one of the big minds for like GTA's sort of like satire and stuff. And like that seems to be intact just based on the trailer, which again, is that good or bad? We'll see. But it's like, I hope that they strike a balance and it's like, and I just hope the game isn't just like an 80-hour montage of like Florida jokes or Florida man jokes that we've seen
Sure.
before, but with like
Sure.
nothing new to add to it. Just like, hey, we saw something silly on TikTok and we just made that in the
Right.
game, and that's like all we have to say about it. Basically, it's like, isn't it silly that alligators are everywhere? And they're like, yeah,
No, right.
yeah, that's a thing, yeah.
No, that's a good point. I guess like it only time will tell, right? But I'm interested in seeing what the stakes are. I feel like they're was like an inkling of the stakes, especially like just seeing like Lucia being in jail, and then that moment at the very end of the trailer where you get that the confirmation of trust between her and her partner before, I guess, before they go rob a store or something. So I feel like there's stakes there. I feel like GTA usually always has stakes, of course, like packaged around the comedy and goofiness that we were talking about.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of interested in seeing, seeing what the consequences of the actions of these characters are, and how that sort of comes across and develops into this more maybe a more serious narrative in between all of the goofiness and the comedy. So I'm very interested in seeing how that kind of plays out.
Yeah, and also like I'm with you. I think the game looks gorgeous. I know some people are like, "Oh, this doesn't look that impressive," which I'm like, I don't know what you want in honestly, I just don't know what you want anymore for like a game as
Right.
dense as huge as that game is likely going to be. Like we even shot a shot in the trailer like teasing the Florida Keys, which is a whole, in real life is a whole other area. Like that is huge outside of just like
Mhm.
Miami. So like if that's all there, like to have like that much landmass and that much detail. I mean, we saw that with Red Dead 2. Like that game's huge and like everything looks great in that game.
It
So
looks so good.
yeah, like no, it's not gonna have like David Cage style like facial expressions, but like they do emote pretty good based on that trailer and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like that, the gameplay, I'm curious to see if they do like the switching protagonist thing like GTA 5 did, since there's two of them, or if it's
Right.
straight up you just choose one and the other one is just a buddy for the rest of the
Mhm.
story. I would imagine they do the GTA 5 switching just because they already have that tech
Yeah.
available to them.
Yeah.
And then also like we talked about the TikTok stuff. Like I kept wondering like, are those going to be cinematics, or will you have the ability to use your phone and make TikToks in game and like make
That would be
the
interesting.
like snarky little captions, and like could that be something that you share online to be like, yeah, I just saw like a random weird thing happening in the world and I just filmed it with my in-game cell phone and now I'm posting it on like real life Twitter, you know?
Yeah. Hey, that'd be kind of interesting. I mean, like their own little take on the camera systems that other games have. But yeah, I think that would be it'd be kind of interesting to see. And I mean, you touched on it already a little bit, but I think it would definitely fit into like that, into a multiplayer setting, which I feel is, at least right now, what a lot of people are drawn to GTA 5 because of GTA Online. I mean, my goodness, the amount of role playing that I can't even believe what I've seen some people do in GTA Online. So so yeah, I think adding like this little Twitter or some kind of social media component would be kind of interesting, and seeing how that evolves with a lot of people playing the game. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the other big question too, is like the state of GTA Online. Like, is that gonna be incorporated into this in some way? Did
Right.
they do a GTA Online 2 basically
Oh
for
yeah.
this game? And if that is that a good idea? To like, it's always like the tricky thing of like making a sequel to a live service game. Sometimes it works out in the case of like something like Destiny. Other times, maybe not so much in the case of something like Overwatch, or
Yeah.
Overwatch
Yeah.
2
Yeah. Yeah.
specifically. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm very interested to see what they do with that. And then also just like I'm gonna ask you, like, do you think they announced it too early? Is it cruel to tease this out and then put a
Mm.
2025 release window? Do we? It's like, is that too soon? Could they have just waited till next year?
I wonder, I do wonder about that. Maybe they could have waited till next year. Maybe they could have done like a like Summer Games Fest kind of thing, or maybe not even, maybe like their own thing, since it seems like that's what they were going to do with this trailer. I almost assumed that there would be a GTA 6 trailer at the Game Awards. I thought that maybe
Right.
that would be when they would showcase it. But I mean, Rockstar does have that pull where they can just be like, yeah, you know what? We'll just release our trailer a couple days before the big event of game trailers, right? So
Mm.
I think yeah, I wonder if they could have waited until next year. I don't know. It's weird. I think no matter what, the trailer would have blown up anyway, right?
Well, and that,
And
maybe that's the argument, to just wait, to just at
yeah,
least like, because that
right,
seemed like
right,
the deflating factor. It's like, oh man, this looks great, and then, oh, 2025, huh?
right.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I guess I'll forget about this for a while.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we probably probably won't see another trailer till like this time next year or something.
Yeah, we'll see. Unless somebody leaks another one. I mean, if anyone feels like getting got by Rockstar.
Right. Yeah, getting permabanned for life. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That was just a weird thing to me of like, what was the benefit for announcing it that late? Because there's always a chance it could be late 2025, which makes it even longer. But I mean,
Right. True enough.
I guess the benefit is that what is it, December? It'll be December 9th by the time you're watching it or listening to this. So we have just a few more weeks before we can say Grand Theft Auto 5 comes out next year, as opposed to saying 2025. So it'll sound like it's closer than it is come the
Right.
new year. So maybe that's what they were going for. Like, soon
So,
enough it'll
yeah.
sound better. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how often or when the next time is that we'll see anything about this game, and we'll get some more answers to some of our burning questions. But I'd say overall, I think it made a good first impression in general. Like, it was a good tone setter. And again, it looks like impressive as hell, just
For
fidelity
sure.
wise and stuff. So
For sure. The hair physics are, I mean, I know a lot of people are talking about the hair physics, but man, yeah, it's a good looking game.
when that one lady spun around and her hair
Yep.
was like, woo, bounced on her shoulders, you're like, next gen is, we're here, baby. This is it. This is what we've been
for
waiting
sure.
for. That is the new Triple H's hair of like setting the benchmark for video game hair. Speaking of benchmarks in video games, we are now going to jump into maybe the meatiest topic of the show, the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley's annual celebration slash trailer bonanza that we get every December. They aired this week. It was a 3-hour extravaganza, and depending on what you were there for, it was maybe either the best thing ever or maybe the most frustrating thing you've ever watched. We'll get into that, but because it really was like, it was a tale of two shows. Of if you were there for the world premieres and the trailers and maybe even ads, maybe you're just a weird sicko for ads, then this is maybe one of the stronger years for the Game Awards. But if you were there for the award show part of it, and maybe we're also hoping for any sort of mention about how awful this year has been in terms of just working in the video game industry and
Right.
keeping a job in this industry, then you probably punched you punched the wall a lot, maybe a hole through it, just maybe more than once. It was and I think I've seen and it was interesting because and you know this, Jay, from having worked here, as we're writing the show, we are so heads down trying to bang out stories from all the reveals. And this year, especially just because there was less of us, because a few of us are just out in the office doing different things. So we had a smaller pool. So I say this because it's harder to sort of take a temperature for how the show is paced or like what they're doing right or wrong. Because like, if you're not actively writing a story, you're kind of like just waiting for the next one. And then because things were so much like it was we take turns writing stories, and because our turn or my turn came up sooner because there was less of us available to work, it was just like I was only half listening to things that I wasn't while I was like focusing on Jurassic Park trailer. Let me write that up. And then I kind of hear someone giving a sad speech, and then the music telling them to get the hell off the stage. And then I would, so in the back of my mind, it was only registering like, kind of like, they didn't seem like they were talking very long before the music started playing. But I'm also not paying total attention, so maybe I just missed the bulk of the speech, because they wouldn't play them off that soon, right? It felt like they just got up there. And then it wasn't until the end of the show that it started to be like, I think they did that to everyone. And I don't think Jeff mentioned the layoffs at all or anything like that.
Right.
And then it wasn't until after the show, after we had wrapped up our work, that I went on Twitter just to, scroll through and just get a sense of like, oh, did people like it? Because I don't have that same, as someone that wasn't able to just sit and watch it and absorb it. And then seeing people that did, especially like people that were in attendance, it's just universally upset is the vibe that I got.
Yes,
like people are angry at this show. And I will say it's like people in our circle, like industry, media developers, whatever, about the way Jeff handled the awards side of it. And, I would like to ask your thoughts, Jay, because unfortunately you were a casualty of the the layoff spree of 2023. You were let go from Bungie recently.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, what were your thoughts, man, about just the
Yeah.
how Jeff handled all that?
No. Yeah. I mean, I think you really explained. I think you really explained it super well. Yeah. If you were there to catch up on like, oh man, what's coming out in the next couple of years, and that was the show for you. But I think as far as the layoff that are currently going on in the industry, and sort of this being an opportunity for Jeff and really just the TGAs in general to really just stand in solidarity with the people who've been affected by layoffs. Yeah, it was pretty disappointing to not even. I mean, there were times, especially early on, like moments where I thought he was gonna maybe dive into it, especially like moments where he was just like, yeah, it's like the greatest year in games, and then I expected there to be a but, it just never
Right.
came, But yeah, I mean, it was pretty disappointing to sort of not to not see like any dialogue about it at all for, I mean, the full runtime. It felt it felt like an ignored issue, right? Like it felt sort of taboo.
Like
I
very
mean, there was no
swept
mention.
under the rug, and
Yeah.
it's wild because again, I was like outside of the beginning where it was one of those like, oh, I think he's gonna say it, because I rewatched like the first hour of the show before this,
Sure.
just sort of recap and try to get like a pure look at it and not have to worry about writing stuff. But it was I didn't realize at the beginning. I was like, oh, I think he's setting it up. He's gonna say, because he was like, hey, welcome to the show, man. Games are great this year. And again, I was like, oh, here we go. He's gonna say it, because it's like, how can he not? How can you say that with a straight face and not address the elephant in the room? I don't know how, like, as a human being, you could do that. And he managed to dodge that bullet like he was in the Matrix. It was like, and because it's like that's this year has been like, it's been such a weird divide of like, this is one of the best years ever in terms of quality of video games, like bar none, like so much amazing stuff that's come out, but just the human cost behind it, and just like the almost like obscene amount of just layoffs that have happened and still happening,
Still happening.
It's like even in our upcoming issue of the magazine, our Game of the Year issue, we like unanimously, as we were talking about that, like we have to write something about the layoffs. Like we have a whole feature just about that, prefacing like, hey, this sucked. Great. And I'm not saying that to toot our own horn, but I say that because it just seemed impossible. Like, how can you look at this year and not, like, it just seemed like such a thing, like automatically, yeah, of course you would address the layoff. How can you talk about this as the best year of games and not have that caveat thrown in? So I think because it was so automatic for us, even with like the cynicism of like the Game Awards of like, I know Jeff usually doesn't delve into that stuff. Like I remember 2 years ago when the Activision Blizzard stuff blew up, and he addressed it in a very like vague way, but it was like better than nothing, I guess,
Sure.
He had like a few lines about like, hey, we should treat each other better in this industry, and and you're like, he didn't call them out by name, but you're like, okay, we know who he was talking about.
Sure.
So it was just like, I mean, I guess we'll take it, I guess. But we didn't even get that. And this is like, it seems like it would just be so easy to just like, I'm not saying he has to go up there for like 15 minutes going on, but just to be like, hey, we're here to honor game makers, but like a lot of those people that help make these games that we're talking about are like not here anymore. They're not working in the industry. They've been basically, kicked off the ship, so to speak, or whatever. And, let's take a moment to like, and that sucks and it's unfair. We need to do better, as an industry. We need to somehow, this shouldn't be happening. Like like just like literally it takes like what, a minute? Like,
exactly, dude. There you go. You're hosting. You should host the TGAs.
Yeah, it takes double the time it takes to accept your award speech. And that was the other thing that sort of compounded that problem of like, okay, we're not going to talk about it. All right, that sucks. But then the almost comical, like it's not funny, but it's like it's funny and it's like absurdity, because they did the Christopher Judge thing when he comes up and they play the music, and we like chuckled of like, oh, it's a gag, I get it. And it was one of those things where like it was a gag that became a real thing, like because right after they did his bit, which funny enough, that bit of him joking around about taking too long was longer than any of the speech.
For sure. That's how it felt all night, right? Like even Anthony Mackie, Jordan Peele, and Kojima, like all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we'll get into that in a second, but like,
Oh yeah.
it's like they did that bit, and then I remember I forgot who it was. Neil Newbon, the actor that played Asterion in Baldur's Gate 3.
Yes.
He won
Yes.
Best Performance, and Judge was presenting it to him, and then he went up and he's giving this like emotional speech about like, oh my god, I can't believe it, da 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 da. And then they start playing the music like almost immediately, and I was thinking like, oh, I thought, are they joking again? Like this is weird to do this joke
Yeah,
again
it's probably
for like
not
a
a good time
real
for that, right?
moment. But then when he said like, oh, I don't have he was like, oh, I don't have a lot of time, and I was like, oh, that's not a joke. I mean, it was a joke for Christopher Judge, but they're doing this like, oh, okay.
Right.
But then I was like, okay, well, maybe it'll be like after a reasonable amount of time for everybody else, but it felt like, and then it was confirmed just from like checking Twitter from the people that were there that was screenshotting the teleprompter that had the timer, and then it would say, please wrap it up, of like, no, they get about roughly 30 seconds, and then they're like, hey, you need to sit down. And for I wish I could remember everything, because there were so many people on Twitter that had very good takes about how messed up that was. And someone pointed out for Sam Lake specifically, I think it was the first time he went up there, and they were saying like, this super sucks for someone like him because he's not a native English speaker, so his speech is going to take longer by default. And there's like, they shouldn't do it for someone who isn't like a native English speaker, or
Yeah,
at least
that's a good
extended,
point.
because it's like, yeah. And I rewatched that first speech when I was rewatching it here, of like, yeah, he's, he just, if you watch Sam Lake in interviews, like he can speak like pretty good English, but it's not his first language, so it takes a little longer. Right. So it felt like extra bad for him because of that, because it seemed like, oh, he would be done sooner if he was just like, if it was his first language,
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't, I feel like and not just us, but like everyone in this industry has said the same thing about the Game Awards each year, about like, man, this feels like less of an award show and more like a like E3, like mini E3, because of just the sort of imbalanced ratio of like world premieres and like extra like stuff of like, oh, here's Anthony Mackie, he's got something to say for a while, versus the thing that the show is called, where like, all right, we spent, what was it, like 10 minutes with Hideo Kojima to talk about a game that we barely even like. By the time that it ended, I was like, I don't think I actually know what this is.
No, and real quick, was that in-game footage, or was it just like footage of mocap stuff? I wasn't.
Again, that was one that I was like half listening to as I was like writing something. So I paid attention to it more than some others, because it was like, oh, okay, Kojima's doing, this is his Xbox game, and hey, Jordan Peele's here, that's cool. I might have missed the like, I noticed it's a game. I assumed it was like Fox Engine or whatever his Kojima engine is. I was like, I guess, but even then it was just like I was kind of waiting for the like, so what is this exactly?
No, yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, did we need to spend like, he spent like the same amount of time as someone speaking coming through his like weird Bray Wyatt door with the smoke and stuff. And it was just one like that, again, that contrast with like, we just either speed ran through the awards, which I mean he does every year, but again, it feels worse this year because of the situation with the layoffs of like, this is the, like with everything that's happened with like how bad it is working in the game industry, this would be at least the biggest sort of like a way to sort of reconcile that to a degree of like, you know what, we're going to give them extra time this year because we want to remind people that we value these creators, so we're not going to speed run through these like we normally do every year. But he did it anyway, so it just felt like extra hurtful, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, even big categories like best RPG and stuff were just like, yeah, Baldur's Gate, okay, whatever. Okay, moving on, we have Simu Lau. He's got a broken foot, and he's going to talk about for a while. and no disrespect to him, I like him, but it's like, it's not the celebrity's fault that they don't run the show. They're just there to hang out and whatever and do their thing. It's Jeff's fault at the end of the day. He's the one that formats the show and puts it together. So, I'm not gonna get mad at Gonzo. I like Gonzo, and it's just like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I agree with a lot of people's take. We're just saying like, Jeff should maybe just stop kidding himself and this should just be just about reveals and trailer. Just make it. I saw someone suggest like it should just be Winter Games Fest as like a sister show to Summer, and then separate the awards and just do that as a separate own show, like kind of like DICE does basically. you
Mhm.
know. And I don't know, what do you think about that take, and or
No,
what do you think we
yeah,
could do better? I guess.
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, well, it's weird because especially this year, the show sort of felt like this weird, like bridge into Hollywood, right? Like, I mean, we had like all of these big time stars and stuff like that, but even when you consider something like the Oscars, and don't quote me on this because I don't watch the Oscars a ton, but I think even with the Oscars, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure people get to come up and speak to like their experience for all the awards. I mean, even stuff that I think a lot of people sadly overlook, like film editing or like visual effects stuff. You know, like I feel like a lot of people are there for like the best director, best picture stuff.
Right,
But
like
I'm
the
pretty sure
marquee awards.
exactly right. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty positive. I don't know, and maybe there's a couple of awards that are awarded during commercial break. I can't remember the
Or maybe they do
specifics.
the thing, and I don't watch the Oscars either. Joseph Ferris told me I'm supposed to F the Oscars or something.
Yeah, right.
But like, I always thought, like, did they do the thing where, like, if it's a game or a movie in this case that wins multiple awards, they announce the big one, and then as they're going to the stage, they're like, oh, and they also won best editing and best costume.
Right.
But like, we're here to talk about best director, basically, and they do it that
Right.
way.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, no, yeah, it's really interesting. Like I think even with the Oscars, they do usually give them a pretty decent amount of time to talk as well. I think I don't know, I think potentially splitting into like, you know, something that's all about showcasing the upcoming games and then having something separately for the awards, or even if you just kept it the TGAs, but then, you know, obviously made it more award centric. I think I think either one of those sort of revisions or could work for something like that. I don't know. Like I said before, it was pretty disappointing to not have, you know, this message of solidarity. But even I can't remember. Did who Alan Wake won Best Narrative, right?
yes.
Okay, I can't remember. I'm almost positive. Maybe it was the best. Maybe it was Game of the Year, but uh, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure the director went up and spoke about the recent death of like the cinematics
Oh
director Rick
right,
Varian,
yeah.
and then for
Was
the
it the
music to
dude that
come
was in the
in.
suit of armor?
Yeah, I can't remember. Yes, I believe that was the
Yeah,
director, but I can't remember his name.
yeah. I
Or
can't either, unfortunately.
yeah,
But
unfortunately,
but
and even if I try to remember, I don't think I could pronounce it correctly, so I don't want to butcher his name. But um, yeah, that was really
that
bizarre
felt
and kind of awful,
bad, and it was
right?
like, I know they
Yeah,
couldn't have known what he was going to say. Like, I assume that that's like on a timer basically, so it's not like
right.
they were like, okay, we're gonna, oh, he's talking about his deceased coworker. Well, we hit the button. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that
Yeah.
was just like that was one that I was paying attention, because we had finished up like at least
Of
my last
course.
story. So I was like, okay, I can actually
Right.
like watch this one in full. And yeah, that was one where I was like, ooh boy,
Yeah.
okay. And I was like, please don't stop talking. I was like in my mind, like, just keep talking, dude. Just ignore it. Just keep going.
Sure. For sure. For
You're
sure.
in a suit
Yeah.
of
I
armor. You
mean,
can do what you want.
yeah, exactly. I mean, but even okay, but even with that in mind, right? I mean, I don't know. I think I would think even for the biggest award of the night, I mean, just let them talk. I
Yeah,
don't know. You know
give
what I mean?
them
Like even
60 seconds or something, right? It's like, this is
exactly.
right. And at
Yeah.
least,
I don't know. It's weird. It's weird.
yeah, it's also weird because it's like, the Game Awards aren't aired on TV or anything. Like, they don't have like a
Right.
strict time slot that they got to follow.
True.
It's more of out of consideration for like people watching, that they're like, hey, we don't want this to
Right.
go too long. But it still winds up being 3 hours. So it's like, if it's gonna be 3 hours anyway, with all the trailers and ads and musical performances and all that stuff,
Hmm.
and you know, all the fiddle farting, but like, it's like, I forgot someone did a breakdown of like the amount of time spent on everything, and that like the awards themselves got like barely 40 minutes on like a 3 hour show.
Oh,
And it's like, yeah,
Yikes.
it's like, if you don't have some like weird network telling you you need to get off the air by 11 p.m. or we're gonna cut you, then just go. Like,
Yeah.
you're streaming on the internet. Just go. It's like,
Yeah.
people are already watching. The people in the seats, they've sealed their fate. So just
Right. Right. No. Yeah.
yeah, I don't understand why, like, again, you're like, we gotta get off the stage, but also here comes Kojima for like, you can go as long as you want, basically.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, and not to say that the trailers weren't really cool and interesting, but I
Yeah, and
think
we'll
some
get
of
into
my
those in a bit. Yeah.
yeah, I just think some of my favorite moments even were just like those moments with the future class winners and them talking about like their experience as designers and I just think because moments like that are so cool, it would have been nice for the winners to actually be able to just go up and have more time and talk about their experience a little bit and say all their thank yous, right?
Yeah,
So
it,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
yeah, it's disappointing, and I'm wondering if this is going to finally be the, I guess, like the last straw for that. I feel like I said,
sure.
people have grumbled about that for the Game Awards for like ever, pretty much, and I feel like
Hmm.
that grumbling has gotten a little louder and a little louder each year. Of like, how come we? Why are we speed running through these awards so much? But I feel like
Right.
this might be the year where like, because I saw Jeff like right after the show posted a poll on the Game Awards channel being like, how would you grade the Game Awards A through D? And I didn't look to see like the comments, but
Yikes, yeah,
there were a lot. And I was like, ooh, buddy, like I hope you're I would assume that you're open to criticism and like, because I was like, I would
right.
not want to be Jeff Keighley right now dealing, because there were some very angry industry people
I
last
bet,
night about
yes.
like, what the hell, dude? Like, of all, like, how tone deaf are you? Like, are you that in love with just being like ads and trailers that you
Right.
like? Why are we even masquerading this as an award show at this point?
Hmm.
So I wonder if this will be the year where like next year it'll be different in some like substantial way, you know?
Hopefully,
Um,
hopefully.
so yeah, I hope he takes all that feedback to heart, like, and truly takes that. It's like, I believe that he cares about games, like, absolutely. I just, maybe his priorities are just sort of like skewed, you know?
Yeah.
So we'll see. But with all of that said, the second half of the show, which is really like 70% of the show, uh, are the world premieres. And there
Yeah.
were a lot of them. There was some like really cool stuff. I don't think we're gonna run down every single one of them. There is a on GameInformer.com. There is a handy list article of like every big announcement if you don't want to scroll down the page and find all of them. But I would say, like, Jay, off the top of your head, what was the things that were most excited about?
Um, there were a lot. There was a lot there. And I'm trying to remember everything. But I think for me, the top two would have to be number one being Monster Hunter, just because I was a huge Monster Hunter World fan.
Hmm.
And I wasn't a very big Monster Hunter Rise fan, and I got to hear a lot of I got a lot of feedback about that after the review.
Oh, right, you
But
wrote
I
that.
was
I couldn't remember if that was
I
you
did
or John Carson that wrote that review.
yeah, I did write the review for that one. I wasn't a huge Rise fan. Sometimes I still go back and just just look through the comments and what people thought.
Right.
But I am really excited for I think was it Wild or Wilds? I can't remember if it was singular or
Wilds,
plural.
plural.
Okay,
Yeah, a
gotcha.
lot of
Okay,
wild, apparently.
yeah, yeah. I'm excited for that. It was kind of cool to um, uh, see them sort of returning to PlayStation and Xbox and PC. I don't remember seeing the Switch icon down there at the end
I
of the
don't think it
trailer. Maybe
was.
I'm, yeah, I don't think so. But I'm looking forward to that. It was definitely a teaser, right? They didn't show too much of anything really in the Monster Hunter
Yeah,
trailer,
that
did
one
they?
I need to rewatch. That was one where I was kind of like half paying attention to it
For sure.
because
Okay, no
I
problem.
was
No
writing
problem.
something. So I saw people like Monster Hunter Man riding animals in big open plains with herds of other monsters who are sometimes
Right.
fighting each other. And
Right.
then I was like, "Yep, that looks like Monster Hunter." Which I'm not a I've never been a Monster Hunter guy, mainly because I just haven't played them, not because I dislike them. But I like World was my first one, like probably a lot of modern fans, and I really liked World. Like, I never beat the
Yeah.
story, but I put like 50 hours into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. 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 I loved World.
And I skipped
So
Rise
this,
just because it was like a smaller thing, and I was like, I think I just want another World style game, which this seems to be that, like the true successor to
right.
World. Uh,
Right. I mean, that's the vibe that's kind of the vibe I got, and maybe I'm just not remembering correctly, but even has the Monster Hunter font for the title always been the same? I could be completely
oh, I
misremembering,
don't
but
even
when
know
I
what the font for this looks like.
right, it's okay, okay,
Yeah,
cool. Because
it's
when it came up at the end of the trailer, I thought it was going to be like World 2 or something, you know.
Right.
I thought it was going to be a sequel just because like when it popped up it reminded me of Monster Hunter World, but maybe that's the font for all their titles and I don't remember, I'm just not remembering it correctly. But no, it does, it like you said, it does sort of feel kind of like a successor in some way to World. Something about it, maybe just the vibe or the fact that it's back on the big consoles again and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm really excited for that. And the second game that I was not expecting, and I didn't even know what it was, and like I was watching with my partner, and she was just like, "Oh, it's like obviously this," and I was like, and then the title came up was Blade. I thought that was pretty dope.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was watching the trailer, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but there are two black characters, and that's awesome. I'm loving it. You know, getting a haircut and everything. And then Blade popped up, and I was like, oh my god, I never saw
Yeah.
that coming. I didn't even catch on with the vampire canines or anything. I didn't
Yeah.
even. Yeah.
In Paris too. The game's set in Paris.
Yeah.
I want to go to a Paris barbershop where they cut black hair. I want to go there.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, right,
But,
right.
Yeah. Yeah, that was gonna be one of my like. It's up there close to like maybe my like
Sure.
it's in my top 3. Whereas like that was such a surprise, and also being I'm a
Right.
big Arcane fan, and this is a Arcane Lyon specifically. It was the team that did
Mhm.
Deathloop and the Dishonored games. I know some people were like, "Oh, hope they don't mess up this vampire game like they did Redfall," which I was like, oh, "Okay, well, I mean, that was Arcane Austin, different team
Right,
technically,
right,
but
right.
like, you know, one miss out of like a string of at least I agree hit. I think they're all hits. I think Prey was very
Yep.
good. So it's like I know some people are like, oh, you only judge them based on their last game. It's like, yeah, but they've done more good than bad. So
Yeah,
I'm
for
still
sure.
excited for Blade, and just it's a third person action game, set in Paris like we mentioned, and the only thing that because they had a Dinga up there with someone from Marvel games, I don't remember who it was, but he talked about how it was still a very much an arcane style game, which makes me think or assume like, okay, like immersive sim
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm really intrigued by that. I wonder what that'll look like with Blade, you know. So
do you
yeah.
think Blade will have a blink like ability because it's arcane? Even though he has
Maybe,
nothing
right?
like that
That
in the
might be a thing.
comics, but they're does he find something where he's like, oh, I can teleport from here to here. Haha, that's my
Right,
Blade
exactly. We
voice.
might take some liberties for with arcane mechanics. Yeah.
He's like,
That'd
oh,
be
now
cool.
I am the ultimate daywalker.
Yeah.
Yeah, no release date on that one or release window at all, but it sounded like it was like very early in development, so I guess don't expect that one
Right.
for a few years. But do you think will this come out before the movie?
Oh.
What do you think? Predictions. Movie recently
Mm,
delayed. I don't even know when it's coming out anymore. I feel like it's been delayed like 2 or 3 times at this point.
yeah.
And the writer strike
Oh
happened too, of
man.
course.
I want to. I want to say the movie might come out first. Maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I think maybe even, especially if we're thinking this is early development. I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? I Nah. I'll stick with that. I think the movie will come out first. Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm inclined to agree, but I think it's like a photo finish between the two.
I agree. Yeah.
They're gonna come out the same weekend or something. but
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's probably what it's gonna be.
but I'll say one announcement that also popped me that I've gone back and watched multiple times is Jurassic Park Survival. That
Interesting.
that looks
Okay.
so cool, and I was actually watching. Shout out to Ben Hansen. I was watching the MinMax reactions. I was like, I need to see how he reacted to this because he's like, besides me, he's probably the only Jurassic Park fan I know that's maybe a bigger fan of it than I am. Like, I adore
Mm,
Jurassic Park, specifically that first movie, of course.
yeah.
It's. I've always thought like, is it my favorite movie of all time? Because I've seen it so many times, and
Oh.
it's one of those movies where like, if it's on TV, I will almost certainly stop to watch it, and I never get tired
Right.
of it, and I never lose that sense of like childhood awe when I see like dinosaurs doing stuff. And so like seeing all that trailer recreate like key scenes from the movie, but with a new protagonist, which is for those that didn't see it, it's a first person action adventure game that seems to lean on survival. It's based on the description, it sounds like they're almost going like Alien Isolation
Or yeah.
esque a little bit, where it's a little bit
Right.
more about avoiding the dinosaurs, where you play as this new character who is an InGen scientist that got left behind on the island, Isla Nublar, right after the first movie ends. So, like, when
Mm,
Dr. Grant and Hammond, they all fly in a helicopter, she got left behind and she's stuck there and she's having to try to figure out like how to not get eaten basically. And so it's like it's set in that era, like right after the first movie, and then you're just like, oh, you're trying to survive these dinosaurs, and graphically it looks good. And I believe I saw Saber Interactive is making it. Like that just sounds like such a cool thing. And I've just been wanting, like honestly, just a cool AAA Jurassic Park game that isn't like a simulation game about building the park, because I feel like that's all we get now. And it's like, I was like, that's cool and all, but like, can we get like anything else? Like, please.
That is very true. Yeah.
So honestly, that's one that has like captured my imagination. I'm like, if this is done right, this could be super, super cool.
That's awesome. Hell yeah. Very cool. Any other ones though? Like, do you have like a top, or is that your number one?
Man, I'm wondering. It's like I feel like Blade and that one are sort of like competing for like they're like in that 1 and 2. Another one that I'm excited for is Big Walk, the House game, the makers of Untitled Goose Game, their next title.
Oh yeah,
it was one of the earlier ones that was shown.
Yeah, it was like it looks kind of cutesy. It was the one with like the. I don't even know how it were. They were like roly-poly dudes.
I thought
like
they were
up and down like that.
I thought they were like bugs at first, like ants, but now I'm not.
Sure.
They kind of look like, if you've ever seen like the drinking bird, like the wooden drinking bird that dips his head in. They kind of look like that a little bit, like especially like the head and the eyeballs. Like if you gave those little drinking birds like little roly-poly bodies, and they were just running around stacking each other up and doing weird stuff. And like a relatively realistic looking world. Like they look super cartoony, but everything around them looks kind of almost like in a Pikmin way, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah. That's a good way, yeah.
And apparently it's a multiplayer game. You play with friends and you're just going around like doing stuff. It looks like it's first person, because there was that one part where one of the characters had like binoculars or something. Right. And they were like, or a camera. And I don't know what is happening, but it looks super fun, and I like Untitled Goose Game a lot. So
yeah,
I'm psyched for that. I want to see more of that, and unfortunately, that's another one that's not coming until 2025.
Right. Yeah.
So
unfortunate.
Yeah. So GCA better watch out. Is what I'm saying. What about you? Do you have another one that you
you know what? I do. I think I might have had one more. What was it called? Light No Fire? Was that
Hello Games next game? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm like cautiously optimistic. It's a little surreal, because I remember the E3 trailer for No Man's Sky. I mean, there's a lot of No Man's Sky trailers, but I remember like, it's so long ago, but like it had like I just remember seeing how vivid the colors were, and then you had like the character in first person walking out, and then they got in the ship, and it's like, whoa, seamless transportation into space.
So they beautifully rendered like brontosaurus looking thing walk by.
That's exactly it. And what's really surreal about it was that, for me at least, it felt like the Light No Fire trailer was almost the exact same like format of the player character sort of looking at things in wonder, and then instead of getting in a ship, they hop on their little bird creature thing, and now we're flying through the sky, and like there's like this really like there's the music giving this sort of like awe-inspiring vibe. It just really reminded me of the No Man's Sky trailer, and that's why I'm a little cautiously optimistic about it, because it just, I don't know, I just had like major deja vu like feeling when I was watching it.
Is it like a fool me once situation?
Yeah, so I don't know though. I mean, obviously, No Man's Sky, the developers were able to sort of come back and just build upon that game and make it even stronger now. And I know it has like a pretty nice dedicated player base, and people like sing the game's praises. And so I would like to think, after all this time, like coming back and working on another ambitious game, I feel like they've probably learned a lot from No Man's Sky, and they'll probably incorporate the things that they've learned into this new title. Yeah. And so
mainly learn not to overpromise. Like Sean Murray was up there fighting for his life not to say anything too ridiculous.
No, yeah, I mean, but it was weird too though, because like oh gosh, were you writing a story during that moment, or were you like locked in? Because there was like
I was watching Like,
Okay.
I was paying attention to that one mostly.
Okay, sweet. Because there was that like one moment where Sean Murray said something about this game being their most ambitious game, and then I
Right.
kid you not, Jeff Keighley was like, "Here we go again," and
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
remember
"Dude,
that.
what?"
He's like, oh,
I was like,
here he
"You can't
goes.
see that."
He's off the leash.
So yeah, I guess I kind of felt I felt I kind of agreed a little bit with that sentiment, although I don't know if I would have said it out loud the way Jeff did. But yeah, I definitely got like a similar feeling from that, especially when he was saying like it's like true open world, no boundaries. I was like, oh Lord, like I really hope they can like truly completely deliver on this full on world.
Yeah, and for those that haven't seen it, it's like they're doing like fantasy now. Like it's not
Right,
sci-fi. It's like people flying around on dragons and like
right.
building like wooden cottages and stuff. Like it's like a hard pivot, at least like aesthetically, from what No Man's Sky was.
For
So
sure.
I guess if you wanted to be reductive, you'd be like, oh, it's No Man's Sky, but like fantasy. But I don't think you're gonna be flying a dragon into space. But who knows? Maybe it's a space dragon.
Maybe.
But yeah, it's and also what stood out is that he said they've been working on it for the last 5 years.
Oh, I
So
missed that part.
yeah, so it's not
Missed
something
that
that they're
part.
like, oh, we're just now starting this. Like, no, we've been chipping away at this for a good while. Like while we've been doing No Man's Sky updates. So it's seemingly for far along. I don't think the game has a release window unless I missed
I
it.
don't remember. Yeah, I might have missed it. I don't remember.
So it's
Mm,
probably like a TVA thing. But yeah, I mean, I it's exciting to see like a new thing from Hello Games post No Man's Sky and post learning the lessons about the launch state of that game. Like on paper, that means they start off on a much better foot with this and also have a better idea of like what they can and can't do with that small team at the outset. And also, I just hope that extends to like the messaging too of like
mhm.
just don't say anything
Yeah.
that don't say anything compromising. I guess don't. But hey, that they've turned that game around and their PR has been done on 182. Like people
Right.
really are happy with that team now and have been for a while. So best of luck
Mhm.
to them. Another
Absolutely.
game that I'm super psyched for is oh man, No Rest for the Wicked. Moon Studios
Oh,
game, the team behind Ori and the Blind Forest slash
yes.
Ori and the Will of the Wisp, doing
Right.
an action RPG. Uh,
Yes.
that thing looks so cool, and like the art direction has got kind of like a oil painting look to it. It's maybe the
Right.
best way I can
Right.
describe it. But it's like
Yeah.
it's not a side scroller like Ori. It's like a fully 3D kind of like almost isometric like third person action game. Um, that thing looks rad. Like I
Yeah.
love the Ori games. Like they're some of my favorite platformers ever. And so to see them do something completely different is like exciting. It's supposed to go into early access sometime next year, so they're
Oh,
going to be building it out over time, probably almost like following the Hades blueprint a little bit.
sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to say other than like I'm excited to play that when it hits early
Yeah.
access to see what that's looking like.
That's a really good pick. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with Ori. I feel like I played a couple of hours of there's two of them, right?
Right? Yeah,
There's
too.
Yeah, so I played a couple of hours of the sequel. I'm sorry, I just can't remember the subtitle underneath the Ori
Right.
name, so I'll call it the sequel for now. But I remember playing the sequel. I remember playing a couple of hours of it, and I mean, just it felt so good to play. The visuals were unreal. I still listen to the music. I can't even call myself a super fan, right? But I mean I like the soundtrack on
Yeah.
Spotify. I listen to it all the time.
Hey, I've
So I
never
think
played Persona 5 and I listen to that soundtrack all the time.
amazing. Yeah, I mean, why
So
not, right? I
I
mean,
was like, I guess I'm a fake fan too. I don't
yeah.
know.
No, but yeah, I think it'll be really exciting to sort of see all of those features come back for for their next title. It's definitely gonna be gorgeous, and I'm sure it'll feel great to play, and I'm sure it'll have incredible music. So yeah, I completely forgot about that. I'm happy you brought that up because that game does look awesome.
Yeah,
For
like I
sure.
said, there's a lot of stuff, like even some quick hits, like Don't Nod announced their next game,
Oh,
Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, which looks interesting. I got
right.
it vibes, just the premise of like
Yep.
teenage kids
Yep.
encounter something scary, then they become adults and then
Yep.
reunite to face the scary thing that traumatized them. And they
Yeah.
haven't
Yeah.
talked about the scary thing since it happened. So I was like, is this it?
Yeah. Right.
there there was the Dead Cells creator Motion Twin, their next game, Windblown, which is like another sort of like cooperative third
I
person.
like
Like
that too.
I
Yeah.
love Dead Cells, so I'm excited to see what that looks like. God of War Ragnarok getting free DLC next
Ah,
week, and
nuts,
it's a
right?
roguelite.
Wild. That's awesome. I
Yeah,
couldn't
it's
believe it was
like I
free.
guess I'll
That's
be
awesome.
reinstalling that soon.
Yeah.
I like the sound of free. It's my favorite
Yeah.
my favorite word. Uh, Also, Final Fantasy 16 getting DLC after they lied
Yep.
to us and when we were doing the cover story, and they straight up told Wesley like we have no DLC plans. He wrote a whole story about it.
Nice.
It was so funny when they
Nice. Yep.
announced it. I just put in Slack. I was like, they lied to you, Wes. They have 2 DLCs and one of them's out now. You can go play
Right.
it. And even stuff like they showed Hellblade again, but no date. There was oh god, I'm blanking on what was that game? The one that the Assassin's Creed Bayek voice actor, he gave that amazing speech about his
Oh,
dad.
yes. Oh, that was so good. Yeah, that was such
Yeah,
a
maybe the best speech of the night. He
yeah, honestly.
uh like he had me in that one. Like that was one I was like fully paying attention to. But he's
Right.
making his first game, kind of based on like his dad's passing. That it's like an action game that looks pretty rad. I just cannot remember the name of it for the life of me. I feel
I can't remember the
bad.
name either. I feel bad too, but that I did really love like just like what he was talking about, why he made the game. And it looked awesome too though. It looked like a lot of fun. So yeah, I just wish I could remember the name. Damn.
Yeah, Akumi Nakamura, her studio's
Yep.
first title, her studio Unseen, a game called Kamuri that don't know what it is, but it was a cool trailer. It's just like
It was a cool trailer.
cool street kids doing parkour and fighting supernatural looking things
Yeah,
in
yeah,
like
yeah.
Tokyo or somewhere in Japan, I assume.
Hmm.
And yeah, like there was like I said, you can go on GameInformer.com and check out the full list there. But like we said before, like in terms of it just being December E3, I think this is one of the better shows. It just needs to be a better award show by
Absolutely agree.
by a large margin. So, yeah, that is the Game Awards. Be sure to visit GameInformer.com. Check out all of our individual stories that we've written up for all of those games. And yeah, how about we get into some housekeeping real quick, and then we'll wrap this up with a few listener questions. So, yes. Housekeeping. Here we go. I had to pull up the doc and everything because I'm so
No
professional.
worries.
As we all know, as always, single issues of Game Informer are available now. You can go to your local GameStop and you can pick one up for just $7.99 if you want to support us. It's a great way to do it. I believe the Avatar issue is now available, but you can also pick up individual issues of all of the covers that we've done this year. And it's, what can I say? We put out a great magazine. You should give it a read. Check out some amazing features from the Game Informer staff, as well as a collection of awesome freelancers that have come in and done some great work. So give those a look. You won't be disappointed, trust me. And of course, in terms of social media, you can find us on just about everything. First and foremost, we have a Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Game Informer. I know we've been sort of lacking on streams lately just because we've been so busy with putting our Game of the Year stuff together in the magazine and everything that's been going on lately. So apologies for that. We will be kicking off our next Super Replay hopefully next week, just because the last few weeks I've been out the office and now Kyle is out the office, so it's been hard to line that up. But we swear we're going to start our next Super Replay. But if you want to catch up on our previous Super Replays, as well as episodes of the Game Informer show, as well as our other live stream archives, you can check them out on our second YouTube channel, which is called Game Informer Shows. It's sort of the companion channel to our primary YouTube channel, which is just Game Informer. You can follow us on social media at Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Marcus Stewart 7, which is the number 7, as well as Blue Sky. Where can I find you on social media, Jay?
So I am on Twitter. I believe my handle should be my first name underscore my last name. So Jason underscore Guisao, Guisao. And yeah, that's like the number one place to find me.
Heck yeah. And you can also follow Game Informer in general on Twitter, as well as Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, probably another social media thing that I don't know about. We're probably there too. we got a broad read, a nice shotgun blast on the social media channels, I should say. Of course, check out our other podcast series, All Things Nintendo, hosted by Brian Shea every Friday for all the latest and greatest in Nintendo news. And of course, an always special shout out to our podcast editor, Matt Storm, aka DJ Stormageddon. Be sure to show them your support by checking out their 2 podcasts, Fun and Games, which I was on a recent episode on, by the way, and Reignite, a BioWare-focused podcast. And yeah, let's get into some listener questions. If you would like to influence the show, if you want to ask us our deepest, darkest personal questions about anything, life, if you want to know the meaning of life, we can answer those questions probably. And you can send us questions either via email at podcast@gameinformer.com, or if this is probably the better way to do it, if you're part of the Game Informer Discord channel, just drop a question into the Game Informer shows channel in that Discord. How do you get into the Game Informer Discord, you ask? All you got to do is subscribe to our Twitch channel just one time. One-time subscription to Twitch channel gets you access to the Game Informer Discord, which is full of lovely folks that ask so many great, insightful questions, including this one from Mike J. Lunt via Discord. About the Game Awards, funny enough, we might have answered this a bit during our discussion, but this is a little bit more specific in terms of the formatting, asking, does Keighley need to change things up a bit to make the show more about devs? I saw suggestions about spreading it over 2 events, an awards ceremony at night, and a look into the future in the next. Having accessibility awards in the pre-show and kicking Sam Lake off the stage felt so wrong. So we did talk about that. Do you think that is the solution? Is like a 2-show thing, or do you have any other ideas for how we could balance it out better?
Well, I like earlier I was saying, maybe like if it was 1 show, obviously giving more time to the devs, but I don't know, maybe splitting it might actually be better. I guess I'm just thinking like, I don't know if people are worried about, time constraints for the show being too long. Like I know, for instance, like last night my partner was like I mean, she was getting pretty tired at about like hour 2. So I was like, okay, I mean, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, I guess maybe it could be split over 2 nights, and then you have one night that is literally just all about celebrating the creators and the games that have already come out, right? And then the next night is all about celebrating the games that are about to come out with all the trailers and cool stuff like that. So I think that could be it could be a kind of a cool like a TGA like festival kind of thing, where like you still get the award show, but then you also get like you set time to the side for all the upcoming games and world premieres and all that. So
yeah, I wonder if they almost take like the WrestleMania route, where like WWE years ago has like WrestleMania is now 2 nights as opposed to 1 because it got so big, and which is a good thing for them, so they could feature more wrestlers and more matches but on each show, which means more of the roster gets to be on WrestleMania, which is like, that's a big deal for them because it's the biggest show of the year. And then for the fans, you get to sell it as like, you get double the WrestleMania, like that's great.
Right. Yeah.
And Saturday and Sunday night, baby. So I was like, do they do that of just like Game Awards night 1 and then Game Awards night 2? And then people that go, just, you get a ticket and you go to both. But then I was also thinking like, if you do it 1 show, would it be beneficial to maybe like do like, the first half of the show is just trailers. Like we're gonna get it out the way, we're gonna front load it, and then the back half is just awards. Like the last 90 minutes, if you want trailers, you should tune out now. We already gave you that. But this half of the show, we want to end it by honoring the people that are there to be honored.
For sure.
Like, instead of trying to do both at the same time, so clearly he's bad at balancing that. So maybe it's just easier to front load the show with all the stuff that probably the average fan cares about more, honestly. And then say like, all right, now that you've had your candy, now it's time to get to the meat, or whatever.
Right. Right.
So I wonder if that would be good, because then the only thing I wonder about doing it 2 shows is like, I know that a lot of the money is made from that ad revenue, like it's just the reality of the show. Like I'm not gonna say he shouldn't try to get paid, right? So like, if you only did the awards on one night, do you lose some of that because all the glitz and the glamour of trailers is on night 1, let's say, and what supports night 2, unless there's enough money there where you don't need it, and just like it just carries over into both nights. But then if you did it the one show, but it's cut in half, basically, you still get all of that ad stuff on the same show. It's just by the time you get to the second half, it's just less prevalent. You know what I mean? We're like, oh, you might get an ad here and there, but it's just awards, and they get to talk for longer than 30 seconds. So, maybe that's a potential solution. I don't know, but
yeah, maybe.
All right, next question comes from Patrick Polk via email saying, longtime fan of the show, recent digital subscriber of the magazine here. Thank you so much, Patrick. I enjoyed last week's episode as always, but I had one question. When Marcus was trying to come up with a scenario where shrinking people would be useful, and he described shrinking doctors to perform medical procedures, was he deliberately describing the plot to the 1987 Dennis Quaid, Martin Short, Meg Ryan movie Inner Space? If it was on purpose, very good job. Very funny. If it was not on purpose, wow, what a funny coincidence. You as in me, should check that movie out. I watched it way too young and it was weird. Happy holidays. For context, Jay, last week we were talking about shrinking machines and how, like, if they would ever be made, like, would you think, because we've made so much, like, crazy tech, do you think we'll ever make an actual shrinking machine? I think because I was talking about playing Grounded, and then also what would be the practical application of such a thing? Yeah. And I suggested, like, what if you shrank doctors down to go inside of you to do like really delicate surgeries, like open heart surgery is really hard, so you don't have to worry about having big hands using delicate tools trying to like move around delicate things. Like, what if you just had a highly trained doctor who just shrank down, little hazmat suit, and he just went in there and he could just do it better, like maybe easier, because he could just kind of almost like a construction worker, like get to work. And it's like, I would sign up for that. I thinking, it's funny, to answer your question, Patrick, I was thinking of Inner Space. I just can never remember the name of the movie Inner Space because it's not a memorable name. And I've only seen it one time when I was also little, so my memory of it is hazy, but I remember it. And I probably watched it too young because it was just like, oh my God, this is kind of weird. People can go inside you? That's creepy. Inner Space fan, Jay? Greatest movie of all time?
I've never seen Inner Space, actually. But one of the first things that came to mind, though, when you talked about like going, like little doctors going into the body, like what happens if they just like slip and just
like they
fall into the body,
like they just fall into your stomach acid and die? I don't know. I mean, if we're talking about the heart, I don't know if there's a clear path from like heart to stomach. But I like to think there's enough like natural boundaries where like the most dangerous part of the body to be inside would probably be the stomach, right?
I would think so, probably.
There's just a vat of lava, more or less, in there. And then that only leads to the parts of the body that just grind you up and spit you out. Like, you got to go through 2 intestines, and it's just, like, nothing that goes through there survives, basically.
Yeah.
But, like, lungs would probably be weird, but probably not deadly. You probably get thrown around a lot from all the airflow.
Yeah, you probably get thrown around, yeah.
Is the heart just the safe? Well, I'm trying to, like, I don't know, is the pancreas safe? I don't know.
It's like, but I just imagine just slipping down. Like, I don't know. Like, obviously I know nothing. I'm not like a anatomy specialist or anything, but it'd be sort of interesting working on an organ, and then you just slip or something, and you just fall into the body. So I don't know.
That'd be a hell of a way to go.
It would be a hell.
And also, what would that do to you as a person? Like, if someone said like a doctor or even just a human being died inside of you, Like
Yeah.
there was a full-grown person that was
Oh my
inside of you,
goodness.
and they died, and now you technically have a corpse of a full-grown adult inside your
Dude,
body.
that is so dark.
And it's like,
Like,
what do we do about that? Like, do we? And it's like, I think you're digesting Dr. Tom right now, by the way, and you're gonna poop him out soon, and make sure you save it so we can send it to the family.
oh, it's awful.
When you like, don't flush. They need some closure. I see some little glasses floating around in the toilet. So yeah, that's a horrifying thought now. So thank you for putting us on this trajectory, Patrick, with that question. Let's see. Another question that is not about people dying inside of you. Quilgrim from Discord asks, if you could take Kazooie of Banjo-Kazooie, if you could take her off Banjo's back and replace her with literally any video game character of your choosing, what would your pick be and what would be the result? So we're saying we're putting someone else on Banjo, like we're taking away Kazooie and throwing somebody else in there. Maybe
Here.
because Banjo, I assume it's got to be someone that provides a function that Banjo cannot do. Like Kazooie pulls her weight because she can fly and lets Banjo fly, and in exchange he's the muscle. So like whoever it is has to do something that he cannot. And like I guess it'd be easier to pick another flying character, but I'm trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
Like maybe, like I don't know why I'm thinking of this, but like what if Solid Snake was in his backpack?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, can it just be like anyone? Can you do like Garrus or something? But yeah, Solid Snake. Yeah, I like that.
And then he would, like, besides being like an extra pair of eyes for like, hey, I can see what's behind us, but he could like, he would whisper like tactical advice to Banjo. Like he would go into a situation and he would say like, we should probably try sneaking around this, And then maybe like when he has a cardboard box that can fit both of them, like a really big one, so like they can hide. So he provides like stealth power, basically.
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like I would get weird with. I feel like I would maybe do. Although Solid Snake is definitely weird to see and something like that. I feel like I would maybe do like Millennia or something.
Just a huge sword just sticking out the
just
back.
How weird with that? Just like just mow down everybody. Yeah.
I mean, it would make Banjo the most feared creature in
exactly
whatever his home is called, Banjo Land. Of like, no one's gonna want to try him. Like he just has to turn around and you see Millennia. Just like but it'd be funny. Like, would she be less threatening because she's kind of like in a backpack, like just like a toddler, kind of? But like,
yeah, that'd be really cute. No, yeah.
Like you just see her arm, like her upper body sticking out with the big sword, but she like you can't see her legs.
Right. If there's like a health system thing, as long as she does damage, like everyone's getting their health back and stuff like that. Yeah, that could be kind of interesting.
That's true, and it like because she has two phases in her fight where she transforms. Does Banjo transform when she transforms?
Oh, I think we should go with that. I think Banjo should transform. Yeah, you get the little rot flower thing. Yeah.
I like this. That Elden Rings DLC is coming out eventually, so they could do this. Miyazaki maybe get Rare on the phone, see if you can make this happen. Just saying.
Right.
All right. We last question from Dr. Mono in Discord asking, looking at 2023's releases, which is your most unpopular opinion? Either disliking a broadly acclaimed game or, the other way, liking something that maybe other people were down on. Basically, do you have a hot take for 2023 releases of like, man, that was alright, I guess. Baldur's Gate is fine.
Right. God, it's tough. I don't know if it's a hot take. Maybe it is. I don't know. So Final Fantasy 16 got a lot of love. It also got a lot of hate.
Yeah.
And I think I want to say, I could be wrong, but I want to say like a lot of the people who had negative feelings towards it, I think they focused a lot on the story, the narrative of it. Yeah, right. Like I think that's safe to say that. I think a lot of people who really loved it, loved the action and the visuals and stuff like that. So I think when I was playing it, there were definitely moments in the story that I was just like, but I think design wise, like, I think there were some small narrative design decisions they made that I thought were like pretty incredible. Maybe not particularly unique, but I talked a little bit about this on MinMax, but I don't have you played it, Marcus?
I'm still playing it, but I'm
Okay, gotcha.
pretty deep into it.
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay, this isn't a spoiler or anything, but something that I thought was really cool was that they update all of the, I guess we can call it banter, that you hear running past NPCs every time a world event happens.
Yeah, like you'll go back to the hideaway and they'll be like, "Oh, the sky changed," or "Whoa."
Right. And obviously for stuff like, the thing in the sky or whatever, and people talking about, obviously that would make sense for something like that. But I guess I was really shocked that you could like sort of go back to almost every town and there would be something new depending on the things you did.
Because things will happen
sure,
to cities of like, "Oh no, something bad happened to them," and then everyone there like reacts accordingly.
Right. Obviously that's not like the most unique thing in game. I mean, we've seen it in other games too, but I will say, like, I definitely added another 30 hours to my playthrough because every time I did something big, I did my rounds, and it was really sort of cool to sort of get that extra context for lore and stuff from just random people that are technically have nothing to do with the Golden Path and the main story. I mean, I'm sure like thousands of players didn't even notice and completely skipped and just kept going through the missions. But it's really awesome that the writing team, I guess, was just like, no, we gotta rewrite all the lines for all these NPCs all the time. And I don't know, I thought that was something really cool that maybe went under people's radars. And yeah, I thought that was something really awesome. I don't know if that's necessarily a hot take, because I know a lot of people didn't really love the story, but I loved that one aspect, at least, of the narrative design of the game. So
yeah. I'm on the more positive end of the game. And again, it's not
okay.
I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
Great, awesome.
So I'm excited to see how it sticks the landing. But I mean, hot takes, I don't know for this year. Probably off the top of my head, it's like, it's not even like a hot take. It's probably like a warm take at best, if even. It's like I'm a good ways into Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Like I took a trip to Sony a week ago and played a lot of it on the plane. I've got like 4 of the 6 royal seeds. So I guess I'm over halfway roughly. That game's good, but it's like this kind of like where I'm at of like, oh, it's really fun, but it's not like
interesting.
It has not been this like revelatory experience that I guess other people have had with it. And I'm a big Mario fan. Like I love me some Mario, and I'm having really a good time with it. Like it's better than all the U games for sure, but it hasn't hit that like this has changed my life level that I've seen other people. I know Brian Shea, who reviewed it. He loved it a lot, and I don't know if I love it, but I'm in like with it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
I'm deeply in like with it.
Awesome. Okay.
But I'm too shy. I'm not there. I'm like, it's like when you're dating someone and you're like, they're impatient of like, are you gonna say you love me, you SOB? And you're like, how do I get out of this? How do I say this in a way that's not going to destroy everything? Like, I really, really like you, but you're really trying not to say the other L word.
Right.
Yeah, that's where Mario keeps tapping his foot and wondering if I'm going to cross that threshold. And I'm like, maybe we gotta go on a few more dates. You got to turn into an elephant a few more times and really let me see if I like it. So yeah, again, that's like a warm take, but it's all I got. This has been a really good year for games, guys. What do you want?
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Well, that wraps up the show. Jay, thanks for coming back and hanging out for me, man.
For having me. Thank you so much. I had a blast.
Yeah, like I said, you're you're gone from Bungie now. You're on your way to your next gig. Please, floor is yours. Anything you want to promote, or just again, if you want to remind people where they can hit you up.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, like as I said before, you can find me on my Twitter. But I did just recently put out a portfolio website of all the games I've worked on and writing samples of like screenplays, prose, some narrative design, like character sheets and barks and stuff. And you can go to jguisao.com. That's simple, Jay, Guisao, Guisao.com. And you can read my stuff and see what I've been working on for the past few years. I've got Game Informer stuff on there too. So yeah, that's definitely something I hope people check out and enjoy what they see and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, my short version of that is please hire Jay. He's awesome. And I know
Please,
because
please.
I've worked with him here
Thank you.
for
Thank
a
you so
good
much.
while and loved it. So you can consider this a reference, a video reference.
you.
Hire Jay
Thank you
if you
so
can. So, and yeah, like I said, we'll be back next Thursday with another episode of the Game Informer Show. Thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. Shout out to everyone on YouTube checking us out. And be sure to visit GameInformer.com to catch up on all the Game Awards news and other cool features in the pipeline. We shall see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.